Okay, getting ready for our first New York Creator Method event. Did I sleep? No. Doesn't matter? Also no. Okay. My favorite part about hosting this Creator Method events is really the emphasis on the community, because that's what it is. There's so many courses and things out there, and we do have a lot of value and expertise to share, but it's the coming together and like sharing the blocks and strategies and just in general the overwhelming business of social media. I don't think people realize how much support you need and how overlooked that aspect is. So when we were initially sitting down to record all our courses, I was like, you guys, Creator Method needs to have a huge component of bringing people together, because that's what I needed the most throughout my career. And I'm excited to have them happen all over the world. Like, that's where I want to take Creator Method global.
And I'm Christine Pearson. I'm the Vice President of Communications and Events at Caudalie, which how many of you know the brand? Ooh, I love to see it. So we're a clean and natural skincare brand from Bordeaux, and we also have a wonderful women founder. So we are super excited to have you all here today to celebrate International Women's Day. And I have, with two wonderful panelists, so Rachel, who you all know, and Gary as well.
Wow, okay, so I'm gonna jump into things. I love you guys. I'm really beside myself, and I say that I love you guys because I love you for what you're doing. I love you for the fact that you're here, that you've made this decision to move forward with your careers. I know how hard it is. I know the challenges that you face. Obviously, I know them. I talk to you guys. I've been talking to Valeria for a long time, obviously. I love your need for progress. I love your need to break out of, and I have to be cautious how I say this, that maybe what society thinks is typical for a woman. Sorry if I'm offending, right? The fact that you're pushing through and that you're doing these things in spite of the fact that some people think you shouldn't. Good for you. I love you guys. I want to talk to you guys really quick about this trip that we just got back from. How many of you guys saw, so the stories either on mine, hi, you guys saw. So we went to Brazil. I'm bringing this up not to boast, but I want to illustrate a point. First of all, this experience that we had, I just want to frame it for you guys. I know you guys have seen the stories. This experience was outside of meeting my wife and witnessing the birth of all three of our children. Hey, son, I was looking for you. That's our boy Jake. Besides meeting Valeria and witnessing that, I have to say, this was the most life-changing, beautifully dramatic experience that we had were these 4 days in Brazil. But the reason I'm telling, and you guys saw the story, so I don't have to elaborate on all the crazy stuff that we saw, just beautiful. I want to explain how it happened, and I want you to know that this is all possible for you. So, you know, in 2017, you guys all know the story. Valeria is, I don't know what the polite word is a homemaker, a housewife? I don't know, right? Valeria's at home. She's with our kids. I'm out and about, running around, doing, you know, whatever I'm doing. Valeria starts creating content. And the journey, the line that was drawn from those early moments to what I feel this trip in Brazil was this technology, social media, coupled with work ethic, coupled with community, mentorship, the ability to keep going when things are hard, when the data flattens out, and we talk about that a lot, that it led to that moment. There was a sequence of events that I can clearly map in my mind that got us invited. We were invited. We were guests. We were guests of people with access to Brazil that I think maybe 10 people in the world have. This is all possible for you. I want to inspire you with the story. I want you to see that, and I want you to have only positive feelings, right? I want you to have the positive feelings that if you continue, you will have success. You may have varying levels of success. I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to tell you that you guys will all be, getting, private tours of Christ the Redeemer in Rio. I don't want to promise that to you. I don't, because that was over the top. That was like a crowning moment of my life. But there will be varying levels of success, but you have to keep going. You have to keep going. So I just want to, again, commend you all for being here, commend you all for taking this step, for putting as much effort, because this is effort. Coming here, many of you have traveled from all over the world to be here today. Thank you, on behalf of myself and my family, for believing in us to join this community. I love seeing you guys win. Like, I watch your profiles, I watch your growth, your success stories in the chats when they eventually come to me. That's like my oxygen. Like, I can't convey to you. I may not be as vocal as I could be in the chats, because I'm like running around trying to do a lot of things, but know that I see it all, and I love you guys for the progress that you have. Anyways, I could go on and on, but did you guys see, there was this piece of content, there was this one reel that Valeria put out where there was like a vase with nothing in it on Valentine's Day? Can I get a show of hands who saw that? Right. So the reason Valeria was mad at me wasn't because I didn't get her flowers. She was mad at me because I didn't read her mind, because she had told me previously, I don't want flowers for Valentine's Day. And she knew that she told me that. She was mad that I didn't read her mind, that she changed her mind, that now she wanted Valentine's Day. And when I tell this story to women, there's like, yeah, like, you're a jerk. You should have read her mind. So today's March 8th, and it's Happy International Women's Day. So now we can have my wife come on stage, please. You see? I hope you didn't change your mind back, and now you don't want flowers.
Oh my God.
Happy International Women's Day.
I love you. Wow, you really redeemed yourself with the public. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're over here.
Wow, I wouldn't expect any less from you.
Really?
Yes.
Except on Valentine's Day with the invisible vase.
It's okay, you learn your lesson quick. Hi, everyone. Oh my God, I'm so emotional to see so many of you in real life. This is amazing. Hi. Okay, I'm gonna catch a breath. You did a beautiful intro. You really touched on all the points.
Were you listening to the whole thing?
Oh yeah.
That's good.
Let's get into it. So, in the past 5 years, how has the creator economy evolved, and what are the most significant shifts you've observed in terms of monetization and audience engagement?
It's going away from sensationalism, right? For this whole like attention at all costs, and do whatever you have to do to get that click, to get that view, to get that comment. And it's going towards what we see in this room and what we see with Valeria is personal brands are being built for the long term. And that's where the attention is going, because virality and sensationalism, it's fleeting. Like, it's fleeting. So people who do like wacky stuff in short form video or in photos or whatever it is, or they're just showing these unrealistic lifestyles. This is all great sensationalism. It's great for virality. It's short-term attention. What do you call it? Brain rot content?
No, I wouldn't say. I think virality has so many different aspects to it. I think it's we use it to our advantage when we want to bring eyeballs in, and there's a time and place for it. There's obviously the extreme kind of content creators, and that works for them. It really depends at the end of the day of what kind of brand you want to build and what kind of message you're trying to put out there. And that's what I always go back to. I always think about, how I want to be thought of if someone just sees my content, or how my kids would think about my brand. So I always think about that, and I create content based on that. But I wouldn't say that it goes away. I think they're just now different groups of people, and there's room for everybody.
So from a data perspective, what I'm seeing that personal brands that are built on storytelling, that are built on long-term engagement with audiences, and the main difference, Christine, is shift from audiences to community. And that's a major shift. So when I talk about less sensational content and really content really built on a personal brand and built on creating a community that essentially almost like orbits around the central person, that's where I believe the shift is. And I'm seeing it more and more in content creators, and I'm seeing it more and more in the data, where before I would see something like super viral and sensational getting a certain amount of views, and then I would see things like talking heads, where it's just a simple conversation or a clip from a podcast. Those views would be lower because they're not kind of in your face. Now what I'm seeing is I'm actually seeing it go the other way, and I'm seeing that shift. And so now I'm seeing, like, even when I look at kind of a micro sample of Valeria's content, because it's one account, I'm seeing that the conversations that she's having when we pull out clips from her podcast, those meaningful conversations that actually bring value versus sensationalism, those are now starting to get numbers that are exceeding the numbers of, like, you know, those dances from like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, everyone's dancing. And those still exist, but guys, admit it, you're seeing less of it, right? Right? You're seeing less of it. That's the trend. You're seeing less of that, and there's still room for that, but that's now become more of a subset than a dominant factor. And now it's the conversations. It's the real issues. That's what we're seeing. So that's the main thing in terms of, you know, what I believe the trend is.
So 5 years ago, I started at Valeria. So your question about, you know, where was this 5 years ago? Gary and I were just talking about this, walking up the stairs to this room, feeling really grateful, and, you know, Gary's introduction as well. This economy didn't exist 5 years ago, from my perspective. Gary hired a recruiter, I was running a tech company, and he said, you know, there's this opportunity. I'm like, what's this business? Like, this isn't a business. This is like, okay, Instagram exists now. And in just 5 years, what went from, you know, I think that I believe in this. And I met Valeria and I told Gary, as soon as I saw Valeria walking down the stairs, I'm like, yeah, sign me up. So I just believed in it, but it didn't really exist. We obviously had, you know, a partner or two partners at the time, and Gary saw the opportunity for growth. I saw it when I met Valeria. We met at a community center while Valeria and Gary's children had swimming lessons. And then 5 years later, here we are today. So that's the last thing I wanted to say is it has grown exponentially if it started without really having teeth as a business and as an economy, and now we're where we are today.
And something that I want to mention that I love so much about social media, and I started thinking about it with my content, I started to think about what's something I want to be doing maybe in 5 years, in 10 years. So I knew, and I put it down on paper, I want to write a book. I want to, back then I was like, I want to have a fashion line. So I very much mapped out what are my big goals, and I started altering my content to become a thought leader in that space. So I was doing fashion. To me, it was obviously I'm going to have a fashion line. And then with the podcast, it's something where I really wanted to dive more into the conversations, the thought leadership in a space of women's health and women wellness and conversation. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a book. How do I position myself where people would care to listen? Because you don't just come out with something out of the blue. You have to really lay down the bricks. And that's the beauty of social media, that you can tomorrow decide, like, I want to open a candy shop, and you start showcasing candy in your content. In 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to be the go-to name when people think about candy. And then you open your business. So I want you to think about social media as obviously the fashion influencers, this influencers, but what is your like big map? What is your big dreams? And how can you alter your content and your kind of steps to reach that?
With monetization, there's a couple of trends that we're seeing that's really applicable to all of you guys. UGC creators, so for those of you who are at the early stages, UGC creators, meaning user-generated content, if you have a new community, let's say you have a couple of thousand followers, then you will not necessarily get paid for your media reach, but you will get paid if the quality of your content is really good, because that has a lot of value. So that's kind of early stage monetization. But the way that I see the trend going is that brands are understanding more and more the difference between what I call a media hit and a campaign. Whereas a media hit is one piece of content. It's the equivalent of getting an article written about you or mentioned in like in a publication, right? It's one. You get that media hit. Whereas a campaign is something for the long term. So we're seeing brands, on our side, on the brand partnership side, we're seeing brands engage for longer periods. But you do need some scale for that. Not as much as you think, though, because brands are getting more savvy. And now what brands are doing is if they think you're talented, even if you're in like the thousand, maybe like tens of thousands, sub 100,000, when they see that, they're looking at you and they're almost like talent scouts, where they're like, I think this person's going places. Like Right.
I know, I was
right?
like, can you
right?
please
okay,
confirm?
Well, no, that's a great.
We have a wealth
that's
of
great.
knowledge here.
I will say, creator actually spoke about her yesterday. Loved her content. I followed her. She had 14,000 followers. Now she has almost 3 million on TikTok. And she's been with us so early on, and we just have a different type of really special relationship. So don't get discouraged at all by the numbers, because brands will kind of lock in early if they really love your content, and then they kind of stay with you through your path.
I'm really happy to hear that. That's really validating.
And that's such a huge shift also in the industry, because before I feel like brands were just, oh, this is some cheap media we can hop on and move on until it stops hitting. And now it's really about finding those ambassadors, finding those people that you can grow with.
And then the other form of monetization is, quite frankly, the one we're experiencing right now. right? It's building a community. Building a community where there's a membership fee. The evolution of that is interesting because there was a period of time when it was all about courses, and the courses were very short-lived. It's like $300-400 for a course. They'd sell thousands of courses, they'd make millions of dollars, and it was over. That's it. It's done. They've already conveyed all of the value that they have, whatever it is that they know how to do. Now what's evolving, and we're seeing it more and more, and I have a lot of friends in this industry now who they have communities like this. So not only is it the curriculum that we provide with those 100+ videos that you guys have access to, but it's also this. It's the live events. It's the ability for you to communicate with each other. I believe that's going to be one of the most kind of prominent monetization models that we're going to see is what we're doing here, where you're building a community, because that's ongoing value versus for you as a creator to do, let's say, an ebook or a course of some kind where it's like a one-time hit. You will be able to create communities like this one based on your specific subject matter. So that's where I see the monetization going.
I have to give you guys a shout out for community because it doesn't exist in just creators. It really exists with brands as well. So you had invited us, a lot of brands, for Galentine's Day, and it was one of the most special experiences. I think you had some of the top brands there, but it was a really great way for us to understand what you do and all of the creators in your program. So thank you for that, and I think it's very rooted in community, what you guys are doing. This is for you, Valeria. What do you believe defines a modern creator? So how do you balance creativity, entrepreneurship, and audience engagement while staying authentic?
That word, authentic, don't you want to already, like, you hear it everywhere. Like, what does it even mean anymore?
Can someone create a short clip of that? I want a reel with Valeria fake vomiting, please. Viral.
I think that I don't overthink it, and I think that's one of the biggest thing that I know Gary talks about it all the time with you guys on the calls. It's the overthinking. It really throws us into a place of like, we get lost in there. I know it happens to me, and it still happens to me after 8 years being in the industry. I'm always like, no, this is how it needs to be like, and this is how I'm supposed to act and showcase myself and my personality. And when I get into that place, that's when I lose not only my creativity, but also inspiration. So I'm really learning to like have fun with it and not take it so seriously, because at the end of the day, when people go online, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone that can inspire them to live a better life, an easier life, you know. Even myself, when I started with the podcast, my conversations are very deep and very insightful. And I love that because that's kind of my platform where I can really go deep into it. But even at some point, a few months ago, I'm like, this is becoming so heavy. Like, well, I'm not Barbara Walters. Like, what am I trying to, achieve here? And I really had to remind myself, Valeria, have fun with it. I had to
took a tequila shot with Vita,
exactly. That always works. But so it's really this learning how to be light, and it's very difficult to do, especially with the entrepreneurial part, because you become a business person. Even in my vlogs, when I look back, I remember in Toronto when we started vlogging a lot, and we would vlog the office and all the things. I look back at the way I'm me in those videos, and I just was kind of very disconnected and what happened?
I was just looking for Jake. I can't see him.
He's here. I just felt like very disconnected and very serious, and I was like, I'm not giving anything, right? I'm not giving the kind of this effortlessness that people come to me for. It really is the whole idea of being light and learning how to navigate your own kind of inner turbulence and just I guess changing things up and not being scared of, variety, of showing different sides of you.
You have to be cool with reinventing yourself. So when you talk about, the path of a modern creator, I often use Madonna as an example. Everybody knows who Madonna is, right? You young guys all still know. Everybody knows Madonna.
Whoever said no, please exit the room.
She hasn't worked in a while. I mean, she's retired. I don't know.
The only person who said no is Jake, so we're okay.
Okay. What I want to say about Madonna, and this is something I noticed about her career, and I remember just kind of observing her career, she was a chameleon. She changed so much. Now, she's a musician, so it's different, but she went through so many phases. And what I find with creators today, they're fighting their own evolution. So they don't want to display themselves as something different. I mean, guys, if Valeria would have stopped, when she was 26 when she started, she's 34 now, if she would have stopped then, she'd still be doing fashion and fashion only. And I assure you, her scale wouldn't be where it is today. Whatever your natural evolution is in life, as your interests change, you should embrace those changes. I think that's one of the fundamental things that people need to learn. Don't put yourself in this box.
So for creators that are just starting out, can you share what will make the strongest impression on how they're reaching brands?
I mean, the strongest impression is really building your portfolio, right? The content, you showing up and you really like exploring yourself online. I would love to hear your answer actually, because to me, when I see new creators, that's what I'm looking for. I'm like, they're consistent, they're having fun with it. That to me, what captures me.
Yeah, the one thing I say, I think that creators, when they first start out, sometimes to kind of counter your question, they start focusing on brand partnerships and brand integrations too early, and they lose sight of themselves and their North Star, which was what you were talking about, and your goals and putting out content and being consistent. So for me, the question starts once you've already done those things. So once you have the fundamentals and you start creating content and you're prioritizing building a community rather than, day one, I've posted, my first couple posts and I'm going to have a brand partnership. For us, it's really the organic approach that has worked really, really well. So not feeling like you're creating this content just for the sake of partnerships, but you're integrating partnerships and brands that you naturally would work with into your content.
There's also just certain technical things that you need to do. You need to tag everything. So even if you have 500 followers and you're putting in effort and actually creating like good, rich content, you better be tagging all those brands.
We can see it on the back end, so all our brands are using kind of back end tools to be able to have access to all of that. Doesn't matter how many followers you have. So that's a lot of like the discovery that we see in emerging talent is pulled from those numbers.
Actually, expand on that a little bit, because I think I know that, but I don't think that a lot of people would know that in the room. Like some of the technology that I know that you use and a lot of brands use.
Creators will reach out, and again, this is at every level, and they'll say, oh, I love this brand. I talk about you guys all the time, but we can do a quick little name search and see exactly the content that you've posted. I can backlog it for about, I think, like 7 years of content. When Valeria's speaking about authenticity, reach out to the brands that you really authentically care about and love, and post the brands that you authentically care about and love, because we can see when that's a little bit off.
Right,
I have a question.
Sorry, those early days are when you really can do that and then build upon that, and they'll have the data. So they're looking and they'll have the data from when you first started.
There's a creator who does real estate content. There's a creator who is a musician. But that creator is integrating your product.
Love it.
Okay. So that's okay.
that.
I'm glad you said that, because I was risking you saying no. That's
No,
that's
I
bullshit.
love it.
That's
I
not,
think a long-term strategy and a long-term game for brands in general is to go outside of your wheelhouse. So if I was just to only work with people that strictly spoke about beauty, that's not real. That's not real life. That's not why people follow you. I think that can be like the biggest pillar of why people are following you. But no, we need to have a diversity.
Yeah, and it's interesting because 2 weeks ago I was on a panel. And afterwards, someone came up, and it was a woman, and she goes, I don't know what's going on. Brands aren't reaching out to me. I have like 100,000 followers, and no brands are reaching out to me. And I said, well, what type of content are you making? And she goes, I sing. So I do like these short, like 30 to 60-second clips of me singing, whether it's original music that she wrote or music like she's covering for. And brands aren't reaching out. And I said, are you tagging all the brands? Like your clothing, if you're using any beauty products, anything like that, are you tagging them both in the video itself and in the comment? And she goes, no. And I said, then why would they reach out to you?
Well, also the comms teams that you're working with on the brand side and the social teams, they're separate teams most of the time. So we can only see the tagging through our platforms. We're not necessarily on the brand Instagram. That's really strictly like used for the social team. So I recommend tagging the brands. Even if you were to like, let's say, hide the tag, we can still see all of that.
That's what I always say to everybody here on all my calls. Don't expect them to do the work for you. And so you want to stay on their radar. They're not, look how many profiles and tags and everything. And so you want to make sure that you are showing up in their feeds, on their radars, instead of, I think they're going to see this. It's like a little bit, more intensive than that.
I think that a lot of because I get a question all the time from creators being like, don't you think that the market is too saturated? There's too many creators. And this is such a great example is there's a lot of creators, not a lot of them knowing how to push themselves forward, how to present themselves to brands, even in this little technical things. But I would love to hear from you. Is the market too saturated?
No, I'm like, there's.
We were just talking about this downstairs.
I am so excited. I will go up to our finance team, all of our cross teams. I'm like, who do you follow? Because the discovery of that, of course, we have these wonderful tools, and they are super resourceful and very helpful. But there's never enough. I get a lot of my friends back home they will constantly tell me people who they follow. And oftentimes they're much more like micro creators. Don't focus so much on the number and the growth. I think that's like very short-sighted. When you're thinking about the bigger picture and just loving what you do, the brands will follow. But engage with the brands too.
I want to just kind of finish off this topic about integrating brands and tagging for the purpose of being reached out to by those brands. So we understand like the technical part about tagging, both in the comments and in the piece of content itself, but also the visual. So I keep using real estate as an example because it's kind of far off from fashion per se, but there's a beautiful way to integrate that. So let's say you're doing a house tour. If you're like a realtor and you're doing a house tour, you can have the camera positioned like from here up. Or you can change that camera position to be a little further away and lower to catch your entire outfit, right? So it's those kind of subtleties, it's those nuances that you should be working on, right? So if you want more fashion brands to reach out to you and you're doing real estate content or you're doing music or you're doing, I don't know, you're an athlete, you're a tennis player, and you're doing maybe a mini vlog of you getting ready for your tennis match, change the position of the camera so that it catches your outfit, so you can tag the outfit.
You know who I've been loving watching in the past year? You know the news broadcasters? They would like do a get ready with me at like 4 a.m. I love that. So good.
I also think if you look at your content and you take a step back and you almost look at it as a viewer, like, do you like that content? Would you be interested in that content? And I say that because a lot of the time on my team, when we do paid partnerships and, you know, we use them very strategically throughout the year, I tell my team, I'm like, okay, we made this brief. You could think of this as checked boxes, but do you enjoy this content? And if not, then we need to figure out as a brand how to better create a brief. And I think a lot of brands are making a lot of their guardrails come down in terms of how they're requiring content so that it's actually enjoyable content. We watch it all day long. If you are creating content that's just a checked box and it feels like it's not really original or authentic, it's just not gonna land.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be creepy. I just realized I was blowing kisses to Jake in front of everybody. I was blowing kisses to our son. Sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to be
and
creepy.
we talk a lot about because we have creators that work with brands, and even for myself, it was a question that I always went back to. You know, you want to build a relationship with the brand. You want to make sure that we check their boxes marketing-wise, but we're also the creators, and we know what resonates, and we know how to speak to our audience, and sometimes there is a disconnect. As a brand, how do you? I mean, you guys are really leading.
Flipping this and
I know
asking
because I think
you.
it's so valuable. I think it's such an amazing insight that we have Christine here with us to talk about all these things. But how do you suggest a creator to navigate that conversation of like, hey, I understand what you're trying to achieve, but I know better.
Well, the first thing I'll say is when I first met Valeria, it was actually in her home. So you had invited us to a meeting in your home. And I think when you speak about authenticity, it's really that your exact home was exactly who you are online. The more authentic that you are, again, brands are just going to feel that. I missed part of your question.
Yeah, and how do you suggest creators that having this disconnect with the brand, when the brand send the brief, how do you go about that?
So I think the best, I mean, I always say it's a little old school, but get on the phone. Like, just say to the brand, like, pick up the phone and say, like, can we just have a quick call? If you're at that stage with a brand, I think we want to hear, and sometimes it can be a little lost over email, but if you were to say, like, I want to make this content work so much for you guys and, like, knock it out of the park with this content, then they're really about changing it. They might have from higher ups people that are like, nope, they need to have this messaging, this messaging, this messaging. But for example, we have one of our best-selling serums, the Vino Perfect Radiance Serum. We couldn't have someone just be like, oh yeah, the white serum, right? But we could say the Vino Perfect Serum, not like the whole entire collection name. And sometimes it's a little bit too much for the content. If you have a 30-second window, you have to put that content in. So I think the brands are going to be really willing to work with you guys as long as you make it seem like it's a long-term relationship and it's that you both want to win.
We've always talked about on the business development side is that if we get a brief that, I mean, how to say this respectfully, we feel is like out to lunch, like the brand just doesn't understand.
14 pages and it's for a 20-second clip.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. To Rachel's point, I mean, regardless of the format, Valeria knows it's not going to hit. Valeria knows it's basically like they're just asking for a TV commercial that will not translate to social and specifically won't translate to her community. So I believe that the correct way to push back, in my opinion, and what we've talked about with Rachel and our business development team, is saying, I would start the conversation by saying, I just want to start by saying, I've received your brief. Thank you. I have some suggestions, but at the end of the day, I respect the fact that you're my client, you're my brand partner. I will do what you want me to do. However, I do have some suggestions. By kind of disarming the situation, so you right away remove any potential animosity and potentially the brand thinking, oh, talent, they're being difficult. You're respectfully saying, I will do it the way you've asked me to do. However, I have some suggestions.
The one thing that I have done, I think in the last year that has really shifted is, and to your point, is what's your goal with this content? So I start the call with that. And if they say that this content is for our paid media team, all right, great. And then we walk away because it's a campaign. It's part of a larger marketing message and they need it for paid media. And so it is a commercial. It's a commercial that is going to be targeted on social media and putting spend behind it. That is entirely different than if they say we want to connect with your audience and we want this to feel really organic and have the biggest reach that we can. That's very different. So I start the conversation by always saying, receive the brief, thank you so much. What's your goal of this piece of content? We want to get on this call and really, really align. And that one question can change the entire project.
What do you feel, Valeria, differentiates a creator who's truly influential versus somebody who just has a large following?
I don't look at numbers, honestly, when I think about someone that's influential. I think it's the way people storytell and the way they present themselves. And when I go to a page and I see a clear understanding of their why and goal, to me that's influential. The big following is, to Gary's earlier point, can be a result of virality. So again, there's room for both. With our content, we play on both kind of fields, but I'm always very intentional when it comes to influence because you don't want to lose it, because that's the community part. You want to make sure that when you speak, people listen, your community listens, and they value what you have to say. For me to be valued for my words, I have to be intentional with them. I have to have a very clear message. I have to show up in a real way, and that to me is the differentiator.
I hear all the time, whether it's candidates that we're hiring at Valeria Inc. or brand partners, I find Valeria for the fashion, but I stay for her. And I think that being multifaceted, which is what we speak about all the time, is show your entire personality, and that's what you've done really well, I think, especially in the last 2 years. That's what really is going to set yourself apart from being a creator or, I forget the exact question, but to being influential. And being influential is you as a whole person and everything that means and all the different sides to you and your interests. That's influential.
So as we're talking about scaling a personal brand into a business, can you share at what point in a creator's journey they need to hire a team? So editors, managers, strategists, what do you recommend for that?
I feel because we started so early.
See how we don't plan stuff?
We were just authentic.
Yeah.
We were just really figuring it out. We were building the industry ourselves, if I'm being honest, because there was no one even I could ask
We were building the plane while flying. It was always my line.
Yes, there was no one else. I remember I used to reach out to some influencers. Back then we lived in Canada, and I used to reach out to some friends, influencers that I met on trips in the US, and I'm like, what's the structure? What's the biggest thing people had is maybe like a management, an agency that was managing them, but no one knew what they were doing. They had no editors, like nothing. So we really had to sit down and be like, okay, what comes first? So right now it's a very different landscape. There are so many services, so many agencies that can help you with editing, with this. You don't even have to be on such a huge scale or hire in-house people. But I would ask the question, like Rachel or Gary, in today's time and age, what would we do differently?
My rule of thumb is once you feel like your plate is entirely full and there are things on your plate that you don't have to do, that somebody else could do, and this could be anything that is so small around the house and up to, potentially getting a management team. It's if you feel like somebody else can do it, offload it to somebody else is my first thing. And I know that that's how, Gary started in hiring. But to this day, it's your job as a leader, from my perspective, is to fire yourself from as many jobs as possible in order to free up time to do other things and grow. And so that's a key component. You're not freeing up time to have more free time. You're freeing up time to grow. And if you're not doing that, then hiring isn't going to get you anywhere further.
I love the firing yourself.
My goal in life, like fire
I
myself.
have a couple of positions I would like to fire myself
I
from.
fired myself, and hence Rachel's running the show. I've told this story a couple of times, so I kind of apologize to the people who've already heard it, although I think there's a benefit in redundancy and hearing the same stuff over and over again. The fact that Valeria hasn't left me yet, I'm so redundant with all the things that I say, is a testament to that. So thank you for putting up with me. But I want to tell the story of our first hire, and I'll tell it really quick. So when that kind of at this point famous $10,000 wire came in 2017, and I didn't know where it was from, and lo and behold, my wife, who I didn't even know was doing anything, said, oh yeah, this probiotic brand paid me to feature their content or their product in my content. And I had then asked her about it, and she explained to me what she was doing. I said, where are you spending your time? And she said, I spend an hour a day in front of the camera. I spend like 9 hours a day editing content. I said, how do you know how to edit content? Edit video. And she said, I did a search on YouTube on how to edit video, right? 26 years old. I went, okay. I said, look, what I believe we need to do is we need to increase two factors, the quantity of content and the quality of content. And in order to do that, I said, you shouldn't be doing editing. So let's take this $10,000, let's reinvest it back into the business, and let's hire a video editor. And more importantly than relieving those 9 hours of video editing per day from Valeria was, what are you now going to do with this newfound time? And that means instead of being an hour a day in front of the camera, be in front of the camera 4 hours a day. And then the rest of the time, learn your craft, like learn the subject matter that you are conveying to your audience. So by being in front of the camera more, that increases quantity. By learning your subject matter better, that increases quality. Do those two things. From there, Valeria, I think 5 or 6x'd, like she started putting out 5 or 6 times more content. That was a massive inflection point for us that led to kind of the growth and the scale that you see today. When you're assessing your time and where you're putting your time, that's the assessment that you should be making. So when you're considering your first hire, you have to do an audit of what your day looks like. I would literally, for 1 week of your work, however much time you're putting into this, depending if it's your full-time thing or not, I would do that assessment and say, okay, this is where I'm spending my time. I can hire for this. I can potentially get a generalist to take care of these things. With Valeria, it was a lot easier because it was only editing. So we said, okay, videographer, like editor. So that's how you would do it.
I actually do this every 3 months. I make a list of all the things that I do, and then I draw a line through the things that don't need to be me. And then I look at, do I have people on my team that I can do that? Is there freelancers? What does that look like? But it's a really good exercise to do in your life. And sometimes that's grocery shopping. It's not even work, but meal prep. To do that exercise, even if you're not ready to hire, but to know that if you had the opportunity, if you had the budget to hire, knowing what that first would be is a really freeing activity to do. So even if I don't act on it, it's something that I make sure I do every couple
We
months.
had one member about 6 months ago when we first started, and I was doing a case study with her, and she said, who should I hire? And she started explaining to me her day. And I was like, hold on a second. I go, how many kids do you have? And she goes, I have like 3 kids. I go, how old are they? And they were all like under 4. And I said, you got to hire a nanny. You need a nanny. That's what you need. You need a nanny. And all the other stuff you do for now. So if you have budget to hire one person, that's your person at this point. So it's not only, to Rachel's point, it's not only potentially like a person for the business, but if you have personal things that you need kind of a relief from.
Also, as an aside, I said to Gary and Valeria last night at dinner that now that I have my own account, I love everything that I've tried. It's just my personality. I love learning new things, new activities, new skills. I hate editing. I hate it. I don't know how all of you do it. It's so hard. Now that I'm getting my own personal feel for it, it's such an important and amazing skill. But yes, it takes a lot of time. So that's where we always go back to editing, just because it takes so long. And now, especially that first question, the 5 years, there's so many opportunities and platforms and freelancers. So that's just a good example and why we always start with it, of something that takes a long time that is a skill to learn if you don't know it, and it can actually take up a lot of your time.
So one thing we haven't spoken about is contracts. So I wanted to get your input on how important you feel contracts are in legal protection and financial literacy in ensuring the long-term success.
I wouldn't do it without it. So that answers the question.
Can you
it's very
expand a little bit
important.
more on that?
Gary and I speak about this a lot, but we do not do anything without a contract in place. And a contract can mean a loose, agreement. It can mean a one-pager. It can mean something that you draft up on ChatGPT and you digitally sign online. Or it can be, you hire a lawyer and you have a full-blown full-blown contract. But without set expectations for anything, you're risking there being a miscommunication or rift or some sort of tension in any type of partnership, and you want to avoid that. Again, to what I always say, you want to build human connection, you want to build a partnership with somebody. This is not just a contract that you're doing and removing, and that not only protects you but sets that expectation in place. So if we have a barter, if Valeria has a company that sent you on a holiday, up until a year-long deal, everything is in a contract. And so that's from the brand contract side, is I would never do something without one.
I agree with Rachel. I also want to point out, for those of you who are very early, that contract may literally just be an email exchange. Not so much to protect you legally, because the value of that deal, if it's not that high, no one's going to court over like $1,000 anyways, or $500, whatever it may be. But it's more for the understanding, so that if there's a disagreement and the other side says, oh, well, I thought you were supposed to do this, and then you can always have something back, even just an email saying, oh, no, here's what
We're
we
out
agreed
of
on.
habit too.
Yeah. The most important part of the contract is actually the scope of work. So the SOW, if you've heard that term. The scope of work is what we refer to 99% of the time, not the legalities of all the different, paragraphs and legal jargon. It's the scope of work. And the scope of work is simply just what are they paying for or providing as a service, and what are you giving in return. So it's a broken down, 3 weeks of usage, 2 Instagram reels of 30 seconds. It's just exactly what they're expecting. And again, sometimes that's in an email, sometimes it's in our legal contract. But again, there's no gray area. They know what they're supposed to receive, and we know what we're supposed to give.
And the last thing I want to talk about is challenges that creators are facing when we all are dealing with this with TikTok and Instagram, and we're learning as we go. So what have you seen, Valeria, for strategy and visibility, kind of how those platform algorithm changes, and if something hasn't gone viral, are you discouraged by that?
I used to be discouraged by that. To me, I guess because I started on Instagram, I view the platforms a little bit differently. I am a big lover of Instagram. Like, that's my place, and I'm more strategic there. TikTok to me is a playground. TikTok is where I experiment with content, and a lot of the times we put things on TikTok, see how people react, and then make a decision if we want to translate it into Instagram as well. A lot of people and a lot of my creator friends, they look at Instagram as their portfolio. Everything there is really represents of what their brand is about, and then TikTok is more really like off the cuff, very spontaneous and fun. TikTok being a great discovery place. So show your personality, go crazy. It really doesn't have to be any format per se, because you can learn a lot about how the audience perceives you and what's kind of your energy like, and then take those learnings and translate it into Instagram. So that is the differentiator for me.
And then, because we're here on International Women's Day, how do you feel like you can support your friends that are in the creator community, other women in the creator community, other than, of course, everything you're doing in this room, but your other friends that you kind of grew up in the industry with that are creators? How can you support all of them in their content?
I love amplifying my friends. A lot of them have brands and different things that they created, so obviously supporting them by showcasing those things, talking about it. I love collaborations. Now that I am more in the US and travel more, the kids are a little older, I'm able to do a lot of collaborations and have like fun concepts with friends. But to me, it's really all about amplifying their voices. I'm in a position where I build a large community, and it's such a beautiful thing to bring certain people like on the podcast. And, so it's a lot about amplifying and helping them to be discovered.
But even in this room, I mean, we do something where we have like a member spotlight. And so we have I think it's once a week right now. We do it on your Instagram, and we do it on the Creator Method Instagram. So we try to support it that way too.
Yeah, and I'm getting DMs being like, thank you so much for sharing your members. I started following them and I learned so much. So it's such a beautiful way to keep.
I'll also say from the brand side, I said this earlier, there's so much room for everyone. And I notice personally the creators that shout out other creators, like we pay attention to that too. And it's really just a good way to kind of engage with their content, but also really show up for them, because they will also show up for you. So
this industry, unlike any other industry that I've seen, does not grow competitively. It grows collaboratively. You are not competing with each other. I just want all of you to know that. You guys know I'm a big fan of content collaborations. We just did one in Brazil. It went nuts. It was great. This is such a useful growth tool for so many different reasons. One thing I really want to urge you is to support each other. So if, let's say, you're a creator with 500,000 followers, and somebody with 10,000 followers wants to do a collaboration with you, rather than saying no simply by looking at the numbers, those two numbers, do an assessment to see if this person is on brand for you. If this person you have a vibe with, you have a good energy with, do the collaboration based on that.
There were certain collaborations that I've done that actually showed me that there is another side of me that I should explore, that my followers or new followers came in from that. So it was such a fun way to explore even like how you mesh with that person and what that other person brings out of you when you're in a group with other girls. Like, it's so beautiful. I love the video where it's a group of girls and they're doing things, you know, the empowerment, the support. I'm a big proponent of it.
Christine, something that you said 2 weeks ago when we had dinner, the dinner that you were referring to, is you said something that's really stuck with me and I shared with the team. You said, if somebody's not enjoyable to work with, and it was a bunch of, you know, different managers and VPs at different companies, if someone's not enjoyable to work with, it doesn't even matter about their content or how it performs. This is an industry where everyone wants to have fun with it. We're having fun. We're building a community. We're building an economy that didn't exist years ago. This should be something that we're supporting each other on. It should be something that is a delight to work on. And that just really stuck with me, that you said, you know, we're not going to work with a creator that's not nice. This isn't a business of not being nice. This is a business about being supportive. And not to steal your words, we were saying downstairs, and I told you to speak about it, but Microsoft, I'm going to give you that cue.
Oh, yes. We were saying if you have any doubts of whether people or brands really support the influencer economy, you really need to look at like the top brands. So thinking in tech here, but if you're looking at Apple and Microsoft, like all of these brands, they have massively backed creator teams specific to just working with creators. So, you know, let that fuel you for all that you're doing. But we have like an incredible social media and influencer team that's constantly looking out for discovery of new talent. So it should let it motivate you that even if brands immediately don't see you, they will see you. Keep going with it and just don't get discouraged. Like, I had a million no's before I got to Codely. So just keep going with it always.
And, you know, one of the things we were saying is this is an industry of the more of us that there are, the better this industry becomes and the larger it becomes. And so that's the point of all these massive companies investing in creator teams, is because they believe in it and they believe that this is the future of media. And so you have to remember that, and you have to know that the more people and the more content and the more creators out there and the more impact that brands have from them, it'll grow that investment. It will grow the opportunities for us. So it's actually the complete opposite of what we've all, especially as women, been trained to do and compete with each other. It's actually the more we support each other, the more money this industry will have.
I was talking about it before when I was like doing my little rant up here. What I really want you guys to take away from today is that this mode of communication, social media at scale as it exists now today, is your road to a rich life. And when I say a rich life, money's part of it. The experience we had in Brazil would not have happened if Valeria wasn't creating content. Me to a smaller degree. This is your road to experience. It's your road to personal development like I've never seen. I've been there for it from the age of 26 to 34. That is your road to self-improvement.
I see it with you guys.
I see it with you guys
watch you.
in a short amount of time.
In a short amount of time. I watch how some of you, when you started and how you are today and the way you communicate and the storytelling, like, it makes me so excited for what's to come and what else you can discover about yourself. We talk about it all the time. We always send each other, we have a little group chat, we always send each other video being like, did you see how she did this? And did you see what she said there? Like, to us, it's so exciting, and I hope that you are able to see your own evolution. I always talk about how often I go back to watching my first pieces of content, my first vlog on YouTube or Instagram, and it's very humbling, but also so beautiful to see, to see.
Hi, beauties.
Hey, beauties.
Hi, beauties.
I love her. I'm so happy she did that. It's so cool to see the evolution, and that's what fuels my confidence overall in any part of my life. So I want and hope that you're able to see that as well.
I just wanted to say something before we get into the Q&A. No. I want to know. It's about the Q&A. What I want to say is, with this Q&A, what's changed in this meetup versus the ones previous is Christina's here, and having somebody at this level with a brand to be able to answer your questions. We can answer your questions on brand partnerships from the side of the creator, which has a ton of value. This is a whole other set of value that you guys now have access to. So when you're thinking about your Q&As, obviously we're all participating,
Putting
but
Christine on the spot. Yeah, ask
Christine-
Christine.
Christine is awesome. Like, she has information that, you know, is very, very
And
important.
for context, Christine, you've been at Caudalie for 8 years.
I have. I've been at Caudalie for 8 years. Then I was previously at Birchbox. I'm not sure if you remember. It was subscription box service working in beauty. And then prior to that, I was at a PR agency also working in beauty.
For me personally, I would like to argue the reason why there's a lot of women in this room right now is because a lot of content creators tend to be women, as it's a nurture job. Like, you have to nurture a collective group of people, and we are very in tune with the audience that we do resonate with, because I think that, like, as a leader, it is your job to experience things and then teach kind of like the result of the mistakes you've made to the people that are watching you and paying attention to you, so that, Valeria, you mentioned sometimes your content gets serious. I'm assuming it's because your audience is kind of going through things and they need some of your advice on those things. But to be able to transmute that collective energy into like lightness from seriousness, it requires a lot of strength. And I know it's a team. I know we're all listening to the human excellence that's on this stage right now. But personally for me, and I'm sure this is the case for a lot of the women and men here, I would like to personally know how you can like conjure that up by yourself without the support of a partner or really anyone. I don't know if this is something that anyone can talk to, but talk in regards to, but
I do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of bird's eye view on situations in order to kind of snap myself out of it. You actually made a really amazing point where women, we do have that gift of feeling, you know, the overall energy, and we navigate that and know how to support whoever it is that's in front of us. And for me, it's a community of over 6 million people, but it's still the same kind of method, right? I really, because I speak and I stay very connected to my community online, sometimes by sharing certain information and see how people react to it, I have a sense of what they need. And honestly, 99% of the time, it's what I need. It's truly this ability to sometimes snap out of your own kind of thought cycle, because it can take you deep down. Like, I look at my job as a calling. And I have very high standard of how I show up for as myself and for other people. So that's kind of what I do. I'm able to, again, do this kind of bird's eye view, understand how people feel, how I feel, and what is really needed for me right now. You know, the biggest change that happened for us in my career with Valeria Inc. was during COVID. When so many people went down during COVID, we all got really depressed and sad and very confused. Because of that muscle that I've built through those years, I actually woke up in the morning and I felt like, I don't even know what struck me. It felt like a lighting. And I was like, my calling right now is to show up, is to speak. It's not to share how depressing it is and how I shared it once in a while, obviously, but for me, how do I bring value? How am I sharing something that truly is of value to people? So that is one of the most beautiful gifts that this industry gives you, but it is a muscle that I developed. It did not come naturally, because I think our natural thing is to kind of really go in and to go down with whatever emotions that we're going through.
I think your purpose is just being a star, and a star you are. So,
I mean, thank you.
so-
I try.
yeah.
I just want to say, I have certain moments when I watch you do what you do, and you know, I have the context of knowing you since you were officially, we met when you were 19, and we started communicating a lot when you were 20, and there are certain things that
Communicating.
Wow.
So romantic.
yeah
He was trying to get you to go out with him. That's what he means.
yeah I mean, we were talking more often because I met her when she was 19, and then I didn't see her for a year, and then I saw her again, and that's when we started dating. But there are certain things like this moment that we just had when you talked about your purpose and what happened during COVID and how you showed up. It's these moments that gives me these like shivers, and I'm just really proud of you. I have a hard time sometimes putting things into words, believe it or not, but you are so exceptional. I love you very much.
I love you too. That was very sweet, thank you. I want to add though that there's this really weird balance that you have to keep where you're showing up for others, but make sure that it doesn't become this like fake happiness. You know what I mean? Like, I can't explain, where you start to play a role. When I start feeling like it's happening, I start to kind of disappear, and Rachel knows. I will call Rachel and be like, listen, I need to come back to myself, because that's when you lose yourself. And that's, to me, is the scariest thing, but also something that is very prominent in this industry. You'll be surprised. There are a lot of people that show up online in a certain way, and then when the cameras are off, they're a completely different person. And I understand why it happens. I don't think it comes from a bad place. It's just they're starting to play this persona. So it's very important to make sure that you don't lose touch with yourself, and you remember that that is your greatest gift. So whatever you need to do in order to keep that connection, you do.
My content is not beauty. My content is embracing aging, inspiring, empowering women. I love fashion, so I share that. So what would your suggestion be if I want a brand that is clean? Because that's what to come to me, or should I go to them? And if I go, Gary gives us all the tips. I go to LinkedIn, I send it, but I never hear back from the big brands. I only hear back from the little ones.
These are two small tips. One, I would look at your subject title. Is it something that's a generic thing that's not going to catch attention at all? And then is it a copy and paste that you're really looking at, that you're sending to a lot of brands? Because there will be a very short email that I'll get that will instantly capture my attention, because it really do your homework and say, like, hey, I saw you guys posted this reel on the Codely Instagram, and I totally caught my eye, and here's why. Make it very, very unique to you. I think oftentimes we probably overthink how we're positioning things to brands. It doesn't need to be a very, very long email. It can just say, hey, I wanted to reach out and introduce myself. I saw that you guys posted this reel. It really, really resonated with me in this way, and here's why. And then that's building that connection.
And then integrate it into your content.
Yeah.
So if you want to work with a brand, especially a large brand, to Christine's point, they are actually using software. So we know now to do that. But you can try a product. Like if you really have your eyes set, and we do that all the time on really working with a brand because you're excited to work with them. You try their product, and that's that short email that Christine's mentioning. I tried your product. It resonated with my audience. Here's the link to the post. Would love to work with you. Done.
Or a unique story about how you discovered the brand. Again, it can be really short and sweet, but it's just that introduction and wanting to be that touch point directly with the brand.
Who is the right contact at a big brand?
So I would say you want to work with mostly the PR manager, or the influencer manager is the PR manager at a lot of brands. They don't really separate the teams now. It's become so 360 that all comms teams usually are the ones responsible for influencers. If not, the other people would be social. The social department can oftentimes also oversee influencer marketing.
Which is why, really, last point is DMs sometimes can work, but to Christine's point, it can be a completely different team. So don't assume that a DM is actually getting to the right person, and try those other avenues.
So we have so many people on our social team, and they are amazing, but they're also inundated with so many messages from customers, from creators, people that are fans of our founders. So I would say DMs are great, but it is a little bit separated, and it's going to take a while maybe for it to get back to me. So email is the best way to go, and oftentimes you can really guess the email thread, and like Gary was saying with LinkedIn, it's a great resourceful tool as well.
Full circle moment. I was introduced to Beauty Elixir, I think, from Valeria's content
Hey.
years ago. So I'm a huge fan.
And we've actually never partnered with Codely, just to let everyone know. Like this is because I love Christine. I think she's brilliant, and we've never actually partnered yet. But yeah.
I think I really think it was in the Hey Beauty days. I used to love your makeup videos. So from the brand perspective, Christine, we as creators can only do what we can do, right? We know our audience. We can see what we see on our side. And I would imagine that everyone in this room, we're all doing our best. We want to have slam dunks every single time. You get what I'm saying? We really want to do our best. And sometimes it doesn't happen, right? Like sometimes a piece of content that you're like, oh my God, my audience is going to love this, and it doesn't hit. Of course, so then a make good, like, oh, that didn't really work out. Can we do another post or something to, just show like we're in it together. We don't have a crystal ball. What is the relationship from the brand side of how much a brand can share, because sometimes you will have these slam dunks. Are brands willing to show we saw this, in sales revenue, you know what I mean? Or if the goal was just brand recognition, because sometimes it feels, it's hard to get that information.
First of all, it's going to be where you linked to. So if the brand is having you link to their site, their own independent, they will have access to those numbers. If it is a retailer, oftentimes the retailer is not going to show you any specific backing of that. You can see a spike in sales that you can maybe make an assumption, and that's like a very fair assumption, but they are not going to show those exact numbers with you. So I think you can always put the request in for the brand to say, you know, I really am motivated by hearing exactly the impact of this, like, or would you be willing to share? It's always a question you can put out there. They might just not be able to share with you. It's not that they want to withhold that information. They just might not be able to.
So probably like in the post, like when you're sharing your analytics.
Yeah, you
a new
could just
sentence
say,
to add.
like, you can say, like, as I'm improving my content, I always want to, you know, fine tune it a little bit, and like just wanted to see if you could share any numbers on the back end.
I love that. Thank you.
But you made a really great point where you create a piece of content, you obviously have the best intentions, and it doesn't hit. Like, how did the brand look at it?
So it's going to be, like you said, a split between is it for brand impact or is it for sales? I can't speak to other brands because each one of our campaigns is, of course, going to be different. The goal is both, obviously. It's really going to depend on the brand. A lot of brands are very specifically conversion and sales driven, and they're only going to want to work with the converter people. I think you want to ask, when Rachel was saying what the goal is, you want to ask the brands ahead of the partnership, like, what is your goal? Like, how can I knock this out of the park for you?
And a lot of the time, we'll have that conversation where I'll say, what's your goal? And they've, let's say, contracted for a reel and a YouTube integration, and they say conversion. I'm like, well, that actually doesn't make sense. If you're looking for conversion, I mean, we never promise that, and that's not typically what, you know, Valeria is known for. But if that's the answer, we potentially even change the scope of work depending on their goals. And so sometimes the teams are so disconnected that the team that contracted for what the campaign will be is different than the team looking at the results. And you're actually the person who's blending that together can be really powerful.
And the other thing I'd say is oftentimes brands that you all are working with might have a middle person in an agency or something like that. So for instance, with us, we're a privately owned family company. So we have our entire team is in-house. My team is fully communicating on that. You want to make sure whatever message that you're sending is as clear as possible if there's a middle person, just so there's not any kind of lost in translation demand that you might not realize is getting back to the brand in a way you didn't intend.
And with an agency, what's your goal and what's the brand's goal? Because maybe the brand's goal is for conversion, but the agency wants to get reach in a new market for a brand and somewhere else. So
don't be scared to ask a lot of questions, even if they feel so simple, because you'll be surprised when there's so many people at play, a lot of this gets lost.
Yeah. My question, if you are thinking back to that real estate reference, I'm the realtor. So there's no other realtors here, which is why I joined, because realtors hate each other and they are not collaborative at all. And they lie to you. But no, I have to say, they're
What
just
a great
liars.
intro.
Yeah, they're terrible human beings. I am one. No, my question is, in a environment, so I'm in Toronto, and I work with like high net worth individuals. I sell multi-million-dollar properties. And it's very conservative, very private. And honestly, they don't get social media. I think part of it is an age thing. Gary's unique, but everyone else, most of our clients are 50 plus. And they're like, oh, your little Instagram videos. But we literally sold a $3.5 million house last week on an Instagram story. So it works. And I'm like starting to convince my team to get on board. But even the head of our team, which is number 3 in Toronto, like out of 70,000 realtors, and we were just in Vegas with all these US-based realtors, and he's like top 10% in all of America. Like it's crazy, but they don't get it. They don't get it, and it's so frustrating, and it feels like you're talking to a wall. I find it seeping into my psyche because they're so successful in my industry, and I respect them and listen to their advice in all those other areas. So it's just a little bit hard to carve out the noise of being looked at like you're silly in a way, or being looked at like you're foolish or being made fun of. And I have tough skin. I don't care what anyone thinks. But these are people I respect. These are people who are my peers, who I'm on the other side of a deal with, who I have business relationships with, who I want to remain. Do you know what I mean? So I just find it really tricky to navigate both. And that's why I'm so grateful for Creator Method, because I got vulnerable on my first call with Gary, and it like changed my life in mid-January. And I've been showing up every day since, because he was like, Courtney, just post.
What was the response when you sold the house from an Instagram story?
Silence, because they're like, yeah, it's going to shut people up
Just
real
keep
quick.
doing it.
Yeah. Well, like exactly. You know, the naysayers are the ones that don't do it.
Right.
Everyone that's not on social is not. Do you know what I mean? But it's hard to have this like split, which is why I fly from Toronto to the U.S. like every other week, because I need that environment where people get it.
So I guess your question is, how do you deal with? And I think a lot of people, realtor aside, but a lot of people would resonate with this.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as you just do. Like
Keep going.
You have to keep going. You have to have that thick skin. That's where the other things in your life, the people around you, the people you follow, the inspiration, the books you read, the articles that you digest, all of that can do that for you. Don't look for external validation for that, because it's not going to come. And so if you have that validation yourself, and I know you, and I know that you're thick skin, but you just have to keep going, and you'll sell more houses, and then you'll hear silence, and then the silence will turn into celebration.
Yeah.
In general, and for all of you, in general, you're going to have a lot of naysayers. And at your early stages, those naysayers are the most painful ones, because they're your close circle of friends and family who are kind of like cringing and embarrassed for you and all of that. So you got, no, but it's true, right?
Exactly.
So you got to get rid of like, not, you can't get rid of them, but I mean, you gotta downplay what they're saying to you.
Yeah.
And then in your case, the professionals, they're scared of this because they don't understand it. They don't know how to do this. So because Ryan Serhant being an exception, the people you work with, they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So haters come basically for two reasons. Haters, let's call them detractors, right? Let's be polite.
Yeah.
They come for two reasons. One is because they want to do it and can't do it themselves. They don't have the nerve and the courage that you guys have, number one. And the second is they want to do it, but they don't know how. It's too complex. It's too outside of their realm of knowledge. So you just got to keep going.
I can't explain to you how good it feels to see the people that used to make fun of me when I started creating videos now trying to like do social media. You know what I mean?
Those moms that pick up that you always
It's so good. Like if that's not a motivation for you enough, then I don't know what, better than that. For me, I always think about, and Gary was the voice in my head back then, and now you guys have Gary's voice in your heads. I just was thinking like, I want to pave the way, because those are the change makers.
Yeah.
And actually in Toronto, like you are going to be the pave maker because no one else is doing it.
And even if they would, they wouldn't do it as good as you.
Yeah.
You're the best,
fuel
Gary.
you.
Yes.
Instead of external, let that
Be
fuel you.
petty.
Yeah, thank you. Be petty. Love it. Thanks, guys. You're the best.
Hi. So I've been thinking a lot about having a niche and everything, and I know like a big message for the community and a lot of creators right now is to just show up as yourself and not have a niche. But I'm struggling with balancing it not coming off as like disorganized or random. So I was wondering how you suggest like approaching the niche situation.
Sierra, for you, because you've been doing it for a little bit now,
Like
right?
almost 10 years.
Almost, okay. You have data. So I think that for you, the niche is really about understanding the data. You see what people react more to, right? So when we say like just show up as yourself and do all the things, that works when you were in the beginning of your journey, where you can see and collect kind of an understanding of what people are interested seeing from you and hearing from you. So that's great. But at some point, you have kind of the facts, right? And that's when you start implementing that and creating more of, I call it the 80-20 rule, or sometimes you say 70-30, but create more of a 80% proven content that people want to see from you. And then you always want to leave room for experimentation because that's your evolution, right? I call it, that's the evolution playground, because you can't continue doing the same thing for 30 years. So to me, at this point in your career, you should have kind of a clear vision of what people react to.
And if you feel like you don't, then you can run an exercise where for 3 months, and we always talk about at minimum, for 3 months, try a bunch of different things, 6 months, and then look at the data. So if you feel like you haven't been doing it strong enough or you want to make changes, potentially have this like intensive time where you're going to say, I'm not going to focus on growth, I'm not going to focus on partnerships, I want to focus on my content, and feel like maybe you've evolved and you want to try different things. And then to Valeria's point, look at the data. It will tell you, even if it's, at any scale, the data will tell you what your audience is interested in and what performs better, what formats perform better. And then you start making tweaks along the way.
Just don't worry about like you're losing some followers and you're not getting as much engagement. That's totally understandable because you're doing it for the long term. You're trying to understand where you stand. So this is very much of an exercise.
Kind of curious to know from a brand perspective and then from creator perspective, what do you think is going to change what you're looking to find when you're looking for the future, and just like any predictions
For creators?
that you have? Both for creators from the brand perspective, but I guess also from being a creator that is working forever in the industry, like what do you think? So like from both aspects, yeah.
So I think, well, first of all, people follow people. They want to know about you. Even if you just create beauty content, which is a beast of its own, people want to know what's behind that, who's behind that. So are you sharing different parts of your life a little bit more than just right in front of the camera that's just you? So that's the content I gravitate towards myself. And then our team is just like incredible with discovery of finding new people. So I want to say that we have our 2026 planned out for exactly which creators we would work with, but we don't. We are always going as it happens. And I think that that's been our biggest wins and the people we've believed in the most. It's just kind of been a discovery through your For You page that somebody on my team just like loved someone, or using back-end data and tools. But also, in the spirit of women celebrating women, a lot of the creators that we've worked with are actually recommendations from their friends as well. So it'll be a creator that's saying, hey, my best friend actually creates this content. You guys should send her product. And that creator that recommended them will kind of always live with us as somebody that's such like a just very much celebrates the creator economy in general, but other women.
Are you also looking for like mostly Instagram and TikTok, or also YouTube or other platforms
so
for 2026?
we'll have to see what goes on with TikTok, of course. And I think brands are so ready to pivot as we need. We all have been very much having to adjust to what's going on with these platforms. Instagram and TikTok, we very much have a split. I believe fully in both. I personally love TikTok. I could scroll it all day long. But they're just so different to me. I always say Instagram is your resume, and then TikTok's really where it's a playground. So I say have fun with it, but they're just, to me, they're completely different tools. I don't go on TikTok to see my friends because I strictly stay on the For You page.
And I would say I know you asked to speak from Valeria, but from our side, I think that everybody thinks, just like any company behind the scenes, to Christine's point, that they have their 2026 plan. They don't even have their Q3 plan a lot of the time set. Yeah. So the good news is that there's massive room for opportunity that doesn't exist in 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 2 months from now, a year from now. It doesn't exist now yet. And so we get, of course we have our larger deals where it's, the full year and the full scope. We're contracting something right now that's going to lead up until mid 2026. But we also have people coming to us saying, we have this new initiative that came out of nowhere, or we have an event that our team is planning, or we have this PR opportunity, or a product launch we thought was going to be ready, but it's delayed. And now we have this new activation that it's changing so rapidly that there's always opportunity for that discovery and to work with brands. And the platforms themselves are also changing so rapidly. So Meta announces a new change, an update, an algorithm change. This is happening all the time. Trends change, YouTube trends, like YouTube now long format is back. A year ago it wasn't. So you have to be really adaptable to that change and just constantly be trying new things and engaging with new opportunities.
And that's why I think we keep going back to you have to live life and tell your own story, because you can't chase a trend, you can't create content for a specific brand, because content opportunities are the best way to touch brands, right? Even, when we talk to brands, we ask them what's their opportunities, what's popping up. But even for us, when we have content opportunities, when something's going on in my life, I'm like, this is a perfect example to reach out to this partner and be like, come on in, this is going to be a beautiful organic situation. That's why content for me goes first, storytelling comes first, and brands really appreciate it, because then they are coming into a very organic, real moment rather than like a produced, addy situation.
Yeah, I meet with the biz dev team. The last note on this, we meet once a quarter. We used to include you guys. We don't even have to anymore, which is great. And we look at the calendar and we look at everything coming up, down to like Jake's birthday, I know, is in a couple weeks, and the opportunities and the travel and all of these, their anniversary. And as a team, we'll look together and say, okay, what opportunities do we think would be really great to integrate brands? So you're not just thinking, I want to work with you, and you're creating that narrative, you're coming with a narrative and an opportunity that can also be really strong.
That is super helpful. I mean, we have our marketing calendar entirely planned out, but our comm strategy, we have to be as agile as you all do. So we have to buffer in time for things to go viral, for us to tap into moments that we don't necessarily calendarize out. It's a great opportunity for you, but also when you're speaking about specific moments in your life, if you're speaking to brands saying, I think the best way to message this is saying, I have this trip planned at this time. If you are launching a product during that time frame, because we are very strict with our marketing calendar, we cannot really support a collection on any sponsored partnership if it falls outside of the window of the campaign window. So if you're saying, I have this trip during this time, and let's say like there's a sun care launch during that time frame. You just want to stay top of mind with the brand, but also put the brand first. If you're sending an email to the brand, put it in the eyes of the brand reading it. So saying like, how can I support you guys at that time is a very different angle that a PR person's probably going to be like, I want them on my campaign, because they're thinking in a different kind of way.
Thank you. And I also just want to say that what you said about storytelling first is very encouraging, because I know a lot of us are thinking what's happening with AI, and I think it's going to take a while until robots or whatever will tell stories as good as humans. Yeah,
I don't
thank
think
you.
they'll ever will. I don't get served that type of content. Gary keeps showing me these AI generated videos. But right now they're very, there's no connection. It's very glossy, very professional. But at the end of the day, the human connection, whether it happens online or offline, it's no one can replace that. And that's where I feel like this type of thing, right? Community in person, content collaboration with other people, that's so important, because you can't make a robot collaborate with another robot and actually feel moved by it. You know what I mean? There's just something that gets lost.
When it comes to storytelling, you don't have to wait until you make it to start documenting your process. As much as we're super grateful for the scale that we have in Valeria's media, I assure you that if we were more about documenting the early days, although we did, but we probably could have done more.
Are you joking? More?
Yeah, even more.
We were documenting everything.
I mean documenting.
There's my birth is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Not your birth.
Not birthday.
My birth.
Max's birth. Max's birth is on YouTube. Yeah. You're right.
How much more can
Not
we
you.
get?
Not you, son. No, your birth is not on your 7th birthday.
I know
Yeah,
where
but not
we're
your
all gonna
birth.
Go and watch.
Your birthdays. Yeah. My point is that I don't want you guys to think that I only have 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers or whatever that is, or I haven't achieved this, I haven't sold my company and therefore I can't be the entrepreneur creator, or I haven't walked the runway at Paris Fashion Week, therefore I'm not a legit fashion creator, so I can't document my process. And when I say document my process, I mean, if you're, let's say, a fashion creator, for an example, and all you're putting out is your editorial fashion content, but you're not putting out the story of becoming who you are becoming and the road that you're on and the path that you're on, you're missing an opportunity. So you don't have to fake it till you make it. You have to document as you're making it.
Thank you for this. It's a fantastic opportunity. But I do have a question on AI, what you mentioned. My husband is obsessed. ChatGPT is his first wife. And AI, he's
We replaced
pushing.
you that quick, huh?
I mean, like this. He's pushing AI. And I remember one time you mentioned on one of our calls that you were trying something with AI and you were experimenting. He keeps pushing this on me, and I'm so against it. Exactly what you said. How do you guys deal with, do you guys ever have this back and forth where you stand very strong on what you want, but you have your thoughts?
No, but what are you referring to, though?
My husband is constantly, he's very techie and AI driven, and he's like, why don't you try AI in your content?
What does that mean? I don't
But
understand.
the question's different. The question is more
I guess
if you...
twofold. How do you feel? I heard your perspective. How do you feel on
We
AI,
use AI.
content?
We use, ChatGPT made my life so much easier in terms of organization, in terms of collecting my thoughts. Hands down, the best thing that ever happened to me. Same with Gary, I feel. We became so much more efficient with ChatGPT. So let's say an example, I create a piece of content and that content goes viral. I then go on ChatGPT, I said, I created this, ChatGPT already knows who I am and my story and everything, right? So it can customize. But of course,
that's not just because you have a public profile. It's the more you use it, the more it learns
the more
about
you tell things to it, it will, just like a human, creepy. But so let's say there's a piece of content that goes viral for me. I go to ChatGPT. I tell them. I say, okay, I have this piece of content that went viral, and can you suggest kind of a continuation? Like, how can I make it a series? So it's giving me ideas. Am I taking it verbatim and creating that? No, but it's giving me little seeds of like, okay, well, from this outfit of the day, something that a lot of people are commenting about is your view on this. So then it will give me suggestion how you can expand. Guys, there is such an amazing way to use these tools. It's not replacing you. It's just, again, creating more space for you to focus on your creativity and like your craft and giving all that nuances and extra task to them. So there's a way to use it. I'm just against like creating videos that don't have me in it. Like that's the kind of AI.
Is that what you're talking about? He wants an AI version of
Yes.
you? I would hold off. Wait, I would hold off on it for now.
Yeah.
The thing is that it's possible to do a high volume of content that way, where there are platforms where you can take like videos of yourself, load it up, and then at that point you can actually like put in scripts that also AI can write based on your opinions on certain
He
things.
keeps telling me I could save so much time.
I know, but
And
it's
I
not
feel
about
very
it's
weird
not about
it.
time right now for you, because I'm very familiar with your with your Instagram account. Right now for you, you need to continue getting the reps in and honing your craft as a creator before you look to do the optimization that respectfully your husband is suggesting you do. You need to get the qualitative skills down, and you haven't you haven't created enough content yet. We've been doing this for going on 9 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's talk when you have like, I don't know, thousands of posts. Do you know what I mean? Not because we can do the data analysis on those thousands of posts, which is a statistically significant data set, yes, but the skills that you're going to acquire making that much content is far more important than your ability to amplify yourself, a fake image of you using AI.
That's actually a really good point. If Valeria hadn't flexed those muscles and learned these skills, she wouldn't have, public speaking opportunities now. She wouldn't have this success on our podcast right now. And so yes, it maybe would have made it easier, but what does that growth look like for the long term and the different opportunities that potentially can come to you?
Mm-hmm.
Tell your husband I said hi, by the way. I've met him.
I will. And Mike, if you're watching this, Gary said no.
My question is, I think I have proven, I have proven to myself that I can be consistent because I have put out consistent content, let's just call it for the last 12 months. What would you say I should do more of or less of if I already have that consistency muscle? What else can I focus on? Don't say consistency.
Sorry, focus on for what benefit? What are you looking at?
I guess for growth.
So for growth, you need to do the analysis, and we've talked about this quite a bit. You need to do the analysis of what pieces of content are performing for you in terms of views and also number of followers, right? And then you need to make sure if your goal is short-term growth, is that 70 or 80% is those formats, and then leave 20 to 30% for experimentation to discover new formats. And so one of the things that I hear creators say, and it's almost all the time that creators say to me, I'm not growing, I'm not like, and it's like this, and it hurts, right? And I said, well, hold on a second. Let's go to your Reels. Let's go to your Reels gallery, and let's look. And I can see that this, like, you go through it, there was a spike here, there was a spike here, there was a spike here. Then my next question to the creator is, do you know what those formats are or those concepts are that results in this high performance? And they say yes. I say, great. How many Reels have you made in the last 90 days? 100. Great, you've made 100. What percentage of those 100 are those high-performing concepts? 5? Okay, why are you only doing 5% of the content that drives your growth? So that would be my advice to you. If you're looking for growth, you have enough data, you've been doing it regularly enough, do that analysis and shift that 70 to 80% of your content mix is your high growth stuff.
And then you go to ChatGPT and ask it to give you some suggestions, different variety of the same format, right? So it's the same format, but even like your talking points might be a little bit different. This is when you start playing around.
I'm going to give you another example based on what just happened recently with Valeria. Can I get a show of hands who saw the video of Valeria and her mom talking about speaking in multiple languages? Okay. So
my mom is the real star.
Yeah. So that video in particular, I don't even know what it's at. It's like at 5 million views. It really over-indexed. But the really incredible thing about that video is that when I looked at the ratio of followers to views, it was through the roof. I think it was like 10,000, 12,000 follows. Insane, right? And so the first thing I did was I said, okay, Valeria, we got to call Rachel. Then I called my mother-in-law. I'm like, listen, we need you at the house every week for like 2 hours. And we want you, and I'm like, guys, okay, I want
much harder schedule than Valeria.
No,
just for you to know. It's
and I said, okay, I want the chair set up the same way, the same room, the same lighting, the same angles. Change your outfits, change the subject matter. I even came up with the first subject. I said, okay, from Victoria's perspective, like how to know you met the right man, something to that effect, something that I thought that would be interesting, kind of So, and then we would go into ChatGPT, give ChatGPT the exact scenario. Victoria is from she was from Russia, and then in Israel, like the whole thing. We would put the whole thing in and say, give us 10 concepts. And then we would take those 10 concepts, we would massage them, we'd probably get 3 or 4, and we'll create another 4 videos that will also, in my opinion, perform in a similar way. That's what I want you to do. I want you to go through your...
I do it. I promise.
Okay, so keep doing it.
One thing I'll say is, for now meeting you in person, which it's so interesting, we all say we feel like we know each other, but meeting in person is a whole other level. Your content is humorous, it's witty, it's really engaging, it's amazing. I personally love it. As a mom of 2 toddlers, it really resonates. But I will say that meeting you in person, you have that smart and that wittiness and that comedic energy without a meme and without a kind of trend. So I would love to see you actually talk more. You actually have it way more than you even need to kind of construe in these memes and these different formats. I think I want to see you honestly talk more. Meeting you in person, I was like, oh my God, she's just as funny as her meme content. She's a walking meme. This is amazing. So for me, for you personally, I think like show up, talk more, do more potential like monologue content, document things more in a documentary way than a comedic way, because I was really impressed.
You have the information now. Look, you even see the memes that go viral for you. And by the way, I do that a lot. I see if a meme style video goes viral, I then go and think about, okay, how can I give different aspects, talk about like different version, but the same topic because it obviously resonated. And then I speak, and it's original content, but it was inspired by the meme that proved to me that it resonates with people.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. I would take those memes that really over-index for you. I know there's lots of them, and just expand on those further and just talk to them.
I have one other thing to add here as well from a storytelling perspective. One of the reasons that it went so well with your mom as well is because that content is so uniquely you. And so I would say everyone, like looking at just yourself, we all have a completely different story to tell. And you might not think necessarily that your story is so unique because you might be comparing to other people online. Really tap into like what's so uniquely about yourself, and the content will really follow as well. I've seen so many creators that are so massive that they come asking us for advice a lot. And somebody recently who has like 1 million followers was talking to us about this, and I was like, well, what like really makes you you? Like I could tell you, but could you tell me? And she was coming up with some different things that I was so touched by, and I was like, why don't you like just try a video on that, because it still fits into like what Gary's speaking about with consistency. It can still fit into all of that and how people know you and understand you that follow you. But I think playing with something that's so uniquely yourself, like that video with your mom, is really like remarkable and can just skyrocket as well.
Thank you for reminding me, because I actually wrote them. That was one of the answers that I wanted to give. I find that right now, this is the most important part for content creators. We've had, I would say, maybe a year and a half where we're really aiming for growth. We're jumping on a lot of trends and memes and all that stuff. But now I see we have to over-index on that, like real touching stories and bringing an aspect of yourself, because something that happens when, it's a huge industry, everybody's creating the same stuff, right? You all ended up seeing the same content everywhere. So what's going to differentiate you is your story, right? So for me, you will see more of it. You started noticing if you watch my content that I started tapping into, my like Jewish, and I start tapping into Russian. I started tapping into languages and multicultural. Like I started tapping into that part of me that I didn't really share as much before, and it's amazing to see the response. So even for me as a creator, I've been doing this for 8-9 years now. I'm just starting to understand how important it is now. And that's kind of it's cyclical on social media, because last year we were all kind of tapped out. There was so much, so I feel like we were creating just to create, but now it's like there's a feeling that I feel not even just within myself, but with my creator friends, big creators. We're getting this wind of like, okay, it's time to really, expose and share our own uniqueness here.
I just want to point out, it's one thing to hear Valeria saying this, who is a creator at scale, talking about this content strategy. It's very obviously, I think, for you, validating to hear it as it pertains to your own content. But to me, it's exponentially, more validating the fact that Christine, who Christine represents the people who are behind the monetization of what we do. The fact that this group of people is saying this is what they're seeing and this is what they're noticing, that's huge. The fact that it's both. It's someone who has scale and someone who monetizes that scale. So I just wanted to point that out.
This was fun. This was
This was the best one yet.
the best one, hands down.
I think the biggest thing is Christine, and bringing in Christine and bringing in an executive from the brand on the marketing side was the biggest differentiator so far.
The amount of inspiration I got from her, I have a lot of ideas coming out of this. So I'm going to share with you.
Yeah.
I feel like Creator Method can really benefit from, we have our expertise, but bringing all these different minds and people, and I think this is kind of a new trajectory for these meetups. And I loved seeing, I love seeing the faces of our members. Like I saw this like light bulbs flashing when Christine shared all these different insights from their perspective. Anyways, 10 out of 10, I loved it. The amount of like light bulbs that I've seen in the room when you were sharing experience and insights, so I'm so grateful for that. How was your experience?
I had the best time. First of all, it's so cool to see so many emerging talent, but also people that have been in the industry for a while. So it's really special, and you are the OG of creators, so it's incredible for them to see you and hear from you, but also from a brand side, it's really remarkable to get to show people kind of the way of what we've seen work and what we would wish people would tweak slightly. So it was really an awesome opportunity, so thank you.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Of course.